Before we start, I'd like to recommend you the channel of Zephyr Wings. Just like me, they are doing Rusty Lake theories, and doing it quite seriously. I would like us to support them, the link is in the description. History praises geniuses. Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Edison, Marie Curie. Yet far less often we recall Gian Giacomo Caprotti, Charles Batchelor, or Irene Joliot-Curie, who respectively assisted them in their time. So it is in Rusty Lake. We know Aldous and William Vanderboom, the great Alchemist Brothers. But it never crossed our minds that their success was backed by someone else. Far less gifted, far less important. Yet without whose daily deeds, the formula of the elixir of life and death would have stayed lost. Their faithful servant. The one we'll play as in the upcoming game, Servant of the Lake. And today I, now here, will try to give some context for it, as well as make predictions. And since I'll be doing this based on the games already released, there may be spoilers for the Rusty Lake sub-series. Hotel, Roots, Paradise. So, Rusty Lake Roots, the game where we first truly met the Vanderbooms alchemists, is indeed a unique entry in the series. If someone asked me which entry should you try first in the continuity if you are unsure, I would recommend exactly this one. Seasons is a classic and the canonical beginning, but graphically and technically it has grown slightly outdated. Samsara Room resolved these problems, while keeping the formula, but there is almost no story. And The Past Within, though made specifically to hook unsuspecting friends via co-op, requires a second player and not everyone has such a guide. And Roots is peak Rusty Lake storytelling, while still being largely standalone. A newcomer can dive into its story without knowing other games, and still feel the full spirit of the series. Besides, even though the game is relatively isolated, it had a major impact on the whole series. It not only tells the backstory of important characters, but introduces new ones, as well as crucial concepts. Based on it, several kinda sequels have already been released. And now, with its prequel coming out, namely Servant of the Lake, we return to it once again. The premise of the game is the arrival of young James Vanderboom at the family estate by Rusty Lake. His uncle mysteriously died, so James inherited his house. His will had only two conditions: to plant a special seed, the seed of sacrifice as called in Samsara Room, and to start a family. It was this family we watched throughout the whole game, across 3 generations. All the joys, misfortunes, and the inevitable deaths. And along with us, from behind the curtain, watched the anthropomorphic crow and the dark ghostly figure whom we basically played as. It was they who sent James the message of inheritance. It was they who, directly or not, were responsible for the blood of the Vanderbooms. It was they, the deceased William and the vanished Aldous, the Alchemist Brothers. As it turned out in the secret prologue, which we can unlock after the ending, they really did find the elixir of life and death, the one James was obsessed with. Thanks to it, one found enlightenment and the other death. And they even knew it would happen this way. That is precisely why they prepared a ritual lasting 75 years, to save the less fortunate among them. That is precisely why they needed James. Why they needed the tree that grew from the seed he planted. Why they needed deaths and physical sacrifices of their descendants. Why they needed the magical timepieces hidden throughout the estate. Also that William Vanderboom could live again, though with a new body, with a new personality. And Aldous, having found enlightenment, became Mr. Crow, the trusted aide of Mr. Owl. As he took his leave, Crow told his brother's ghost that he was leaving to serve him. He also took the seed of sacrifice to give it to James, and promised they would meet again. The fate of Rusty Lake lies in this small seed, he said. But who exactly is this Mr. Owl? In short, he is the current ruler of the lake, the heir to the Paradise Cult and specifically to Caroline Aylander, so far the earliest known creator of the elixir of life and death. Just like her, Mr. Owl is willing to do anything to overset lake fresh memories of people and other beings. His lair is a hotel on an island in the middle of the lake. His influence spreads everywhere, and mortals work for him, and so do anthropomorphic beasts/birds. Asuras, that is. Demigods. We don't know what business Mr. Owl had with the Vanderbooms. Did he simply watch their past success? Did he assist them? Hire them directly? There is even a theory that they are relatives. And it's not even as crazy as it might seem at first. To explain this theory, I will introduce Elizabeth Aylander, the blind younger sister of Mr. Owl from his past life. During family rituals, she wore a pheasant mask, and accordingly, after the enlightenment of the Paradise Cult members, she became Miss Pheasant. Eventually, an actress performing at the Rusty Lake Theatre, which was owned by Mr. Owl. In the game about said theatre, there was an actress too. We don't know her identity, but she suspiciously resembles Pheasant. And she presents to us the substance of her past lives. A shell, a fetus, a heart, and a hat. These objects can be arranged on a scale of clarity. The hat is perfectly clear. It depicts Pheasant herself. The meaning of the shell is completely unclear. And in the middle, we have the fetus and the heart. They hint at something. This isn't the first time we see these two objects. Before, we saw them in the chapel, and they were also connected to Pheasant, since the key to their locker was inside her skull. But beyond that, they seem to be connected to each other. If you drip ink into the jar with the fetus, then when the ink disperses, the heart will be floating in the formalin instead. But what does it mean? An assumption within this theory, the fetus, covered in ink and leaving behind the heart, is the child from Pheasant's past life who became a corrupted soul, and who somehow died to this heart. But what do the Vanderbooms have to do with this? And the thing is, the only candidate who fits these criteria is William Vanderboom himself, who became a corrupted soul and took the heart from his own corpse to use it in the reincarnation ritual. He could be her child, whether it's Elizabeth or Pheasant herself. This theory has both strengths and weaknesses. For example, we don't know when William was born, but his brother Aldous entered the world after Paradise and could hypothetically be an offspring of the Aylanders. The problem, however, lies in the mess that these Aylanders represent. All we know for sure about them after Paradise is the starting and ending point. Here they are, gaining enlightenment. Here they are enlightened a century later. We don't know if they reached enlightenment immediately or over time. We don't know whether their ages from the Rusty Lake blog are still canon. We don't know whether they remember their past. We don't know whether they retain their former human forms like Aldous, or even have them at all. We don't know if Asuras can have children, and if they would be Asuras themselves. From this, we have several possibilities for how the Vanderbooms could be Elizabeth's children, but none of them has any confirmation. In fact, the very possibility is in question. So, it is truly unknown what kind of relationship formed between Mr. Owl and the brothers, but I would bet on a close one. Either they are his nephews following in their grandmother's footsteps, or he hired them to restore the work of her life. The thing is, Caroline hid the 10th element of the elixir from the cult. It appears neither in her book, nor in her cave diagrams, but it is directly present in the ending of Paradise when the elixir is created, depicted as an owl mask. I believe that the brothers had at least some of her unfinished work, because in the Paradox short film their initials are written not only above the rehabilitation program for Mr. Owl's resort at the lake, but also above Caroline's elixir formula. Another interesting question directly tied to family bonds, which I would ideally like to get an answer to, is the identity of James's father. James was William's nephew who later inherited the house. There are two possibilities, and both have about the same number of supporters, as well as serious narrative problems. Either Aldous or a third sibling, most likely a brother. The problem with Aldous is that he seems deeply loyal to William, and at the same time would have been a terrible father to James. I'm not even talking about sending him to his death. The ethical side of the Vanderbooms plan is not as black and white as it seems. From what we saw, he lived a happy life and died exclusively by his own fault. If you think about it, all the brothers really did was to give him the initial push and wait for everything to happen naturally. He just as well could have died decades later together with his wife, and for the brothers, nothing would have changed. The problem is different. How terrible of a father must you be if your own son didn't even notice your disappearance or even your death? Basically, for the human world, it wasn't only William who died that day. Aldous, having become an Asura, went into hiding, disappeared, and on paper, James was left as the only heir to the inheritance.
James was his uncle's only heir.
Even more so, the demo revealed that Aldous actually owned the house. A son should have known about that. So to me, all that seems far more likely to pull off in the case of yet another distant uncle, not the father. With a potential third brother, the situation is hardly any better. We have neither a name, nor even basic proof of his existence. No records, no portraits. And he's even so useless to the plot that he is dead altogether. I remind you that James is still the only heir. Before we continue, if you like what I'm doing, leave thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It really helps. And now back to the video. For a long time, theories have been focusing on a potential brother, because normally surnames are inherited after the father. But in light of the new information about the upcoming game, we have a candidate for sisterhood and even motherhood. But I prefer to talk about it later. And for now, let's look at the game about the servant itself. Yes, it turns out the brothers had a servant, and not just one. At the very least, there's also a coachman, at the very least, there's a maid. Where they disappeared to by the elixir discovery is another question entirely. Not much is known about the servant himself. In the announcement trailer, he's just now arriving to the Vanderbooms. The synopsis says that he is late and must immediately start his duties in charge of the estate. But first, he has to sign the dubious contract from the demo, according to which he must serve the Vanderbooms and their guests for 3 days and 3 nights. The Vanderbooms, in turn, disclaim any responsibility for injuries inflicted on the worker. Wonderful. We also have a date, the year of 1839, 20 years before the events of Roots. The servant is truly a character that we know almost nothing about, not even his appearance. And he is, mind you, the protagonist. The only clue, and even this is hanging by a thread, is that very Christmas video teaser through which we first learned about this game. There, the servant is young and a little paranormal. But whether he is canon, a big question. I have 4 not-so-great candidates who fit the description of a paranormal servant of the lake. The first, of course, is Harvey. He is literally some paranormal being constantly hanging around the lake and helping everyone he feels like. Fans have long wanted his backstory or at least a bit more information about him. The only problem is he lived at the lake, not somewhere across the hill. Unless, of course, his appearance in Paradise is some kind of insane time travel. With Harvey, that is possible, but without direct evidence, it's not worth building more theories on this. Another candidate, less prominent but slightly more fitting, is Mr. Bat, the concierge at the Rusty Lake Hotel, a silent minor performer in the service of Mr. Owl. Little is known about him either, except that the developers said at the Gamescom 2021 that he used to be human before working for Mr. Owl. Of course, the devs could still change their minds, but if not, he could have been the Vanderbooms servant. Only there's another problem. Whatever happens in the game, the servant is unlikely to reach enlightenment 40 years before his masters. The third candidate is based on the fact that one of possible Dutch translations for "of the lake" is Vandermeer, the last name of one of the series' protagonists. Neither he nor his immediate family obviously cannot be the servant due to years passing, but some kind of ancestor could do with a stretch. If so, we'd at least indirectly resolve the dilemma of Grandpa's identity: Crow or no Crow. But I wouldn't seriously count on that. For one, Dale most likely got such a lake-related name on the meta level, because he's to become its ruler. For two, the existence of ancestors from the lake is a very serious speculation with nothing in its foundation. Well, and for three, that would render the world of Rusty Lake too small. I would prefer Dale to be a random chosen one from the street, and not some kind of lost successor to a lake family. And the last candidate. Very crazy, yet symbolic. Mr. Owl himself. The greatest and the most loyal servant of the lake. But alas, no matter how complex the schemes he'd weave to recruit the alchemists, it is very hard to imagine him arriving from afar and humiliating himself before the brothers.
You're not off to a good start. I'm sure you can do better.
So most likely the character is new, and the boy from the teaser is non-canon. Because first, there is no Christmas in the actual game, and second, an Oni won't learn even in 100 years to shed his hands. What are 3 days to that? But no matter what the servant is called, or what he looks like, the question isn't who he'll turn out to be, but whether he will survive these 3 days at all. Even the secret hand in the wall from the demo warns us against trusting the Vanderbooms. According to the coachman from the announcement trailer, the Vanderboom family that we will serve has a bad reputation both among servants and among neighbors. Harsh working conditions and some unthinkable antics, the kind people don't like to talk about. At the very least, they are alchemical experiments, at the very most, they are eccentric on their own. It even comes down to murder, if we believe the secret trailer from the Anniversary Rabbit game. The question is, whose murder? Some animal? A maid? A family member? Guess who's cleaning that up? Jokes aside, a woman in red named Alexandra really pays a visit alongside William, and she's someone we don't see in the games about later years. We don't know who she is, besides her being a Vanderboom, but I can immediately point out who she is not. She's surely not Mr. Crow's wife from the mill. Yes, she was old, but she was most likely human, and she wouldn't have lived another 200 years. Actually, she cannot be Aldous' wife, period, since they clearly live separately, and yet she stays a welcome guest in his household. And surely not the ticket lady from Underground Blossom. The resemblance is striking, but the nose is different. And more importantly, Underground Blossom is a metaphor, and the ticket lady is non-canon. If we consider that by the canon Aldous was 40 in 1839, then this grey-haired woman could be their older sister, 5 to 10 years older. If so, she cannot be Elizabeth A. Lander's daughter, as she was being born before Paradise, and the theory about being related to Mr. Owl goes straight down the lake. Unless she's a half-sister. But that's mental gymnastics. And yeah, she could hypothetically be James's mother, if due to certain circumstances he had no father. But I am not ready to believe it that easily. If any exceptional circumstances took place, we have to know about them for sure. And whether they'll kill her or not, we'll see. Despite the short timeline of the game, mere 3 days, it is expected to have more than 30 levels, which is just a bit more than in Roots. And for the most part, the gameplay is classic, point and click with an inventory. No co-op like The Past Within, no metaphorical setting like Underground Blossom. Turning around between four walls like in Cube Escape also won't be a feature, at least not everywhere. Instead, there will be free movement throughout the house, which partly feels like Hotel, partly like the lab again from Blossom, but mostly it reminds me of some games by Dark Dome. Interestingly, in all the rooms revealed in the demo, there isn't a single familiar wallpaper. Who the hell did the renovation? Oh, by the way, the portraits aren't the only paintings commissioned for this game. An updated version of the legendary landscape was revealed. In the first teasers, when only a small part of it was visible, we theorists couldn't put a finger on why the hack fixed what already works. But later on, when the panorama was shown in full and even animated in layers, everything clicked into place. They are expanding the world. The painting is now almost twice as big. Though the other side doesn't have as many interesting spots as the old one, there's still plenty to intrigue you. A new bridge? Unlikely, the devs abandoned the old one long ago. A waterfall? Something might be there, but also not guaranteed. But the castle ruins, I'm sure we'll visit them, and preferably in this game. But the question is, why? Maybe some aristocratic games of the brothers. Maybe some secrets that need hiding or finding. Maybe even alchemical secrets left behind by the court alchemists of the local lord. Maybe it's the old castle of the Vanderbooms themselves. Whatever it is, I'm intrigued. The narrow dungeon doorways from the trailer don't really look like the laboratory under the house. It would make sense to peek at the hidden side of the house, but if it's not actually the laboratory, I'd bet on those ruins or a return to the chapel. That's also where I'd put that thing, either a statue or a corrupted soul in hooded robes. Though it's weird to leave the main location of the game, especially when it only lasts 3 days. So postponing the castle visit to future games seems more than likely. In conclusion, I would like to address the broader context. Servant of the Lake isn't just a prequel to Roots, or at least a spin-off about the brothers. It's another chapter in the Rusty Lake series. Another step along the narrative path. An explanation of what comes next. Chekhov's gun waiting to be fired. Hotel predicted the destination of Dale's great journey. Roots introduced William and his elixir. Paradise, the Day of the Lake, and the parallels of Mr. Owl and Dale. All of this, bit by bit, gives us an understanding of what awaits us next. So what can Servant of the Lake offer? Something new and unexpected. Duh. That I won't be able to predict. But besides that, it can also add to something that already exists. In the Alchemist case, it could have been the elixir. But no, it's too early for that. At best, maybe some weak or outright failed prototype. Neither are expected explanations for why only William knew how to make it and took that knowledge to the grave. It would be nice to know how the brothers even met Mr. Owl, but no guarantee either. Again, those damned 3 days. Add to that an outsider protagonist. Unless we'll find some letters if anything. Or at least they will let the servant see what he isn't supposed to, since they probably plan to get rid of him in 3 days anyway. There's a chance we'll see something about golden cubes. In 5 years we still haven't seen the promised calling card about it. And the past within left me utterly confused. The golden cube there doesn't resemble at all what was created in the cave based on William's memory of elixir. Not in its method of creation, nor in its purpose. In the cave, everything implies its elixir essence. In the past within, it's just a cube of the future. If there is some general rule that applies to both cubes, now is the fitting opportunity to reveal it. There's a possibility to find out James's origin. During the events of Roots, he was in his 20s. So, in Servant of the Lake, 20 years before that, he could already live, or even be born before our eyes. But what I would count on are the new details about the timepieces. Underground Blossom left us with more questions about them than answers. That's for the main story arc. But now, we also have Albert Vanderboom. William's grandnephew, who is up to something as well. It feels like he knows more about magic and the universe than the brothers themselves or even Mr. Owl. In the past within, it seemed as if it was taken for granted. But it would be most wonderful to confirm that at least some of his knowledge came from the brothers. Energy Service was nowhere, provided context and made predictions about Servant of the Lake. Share your thoughts and predictions of your own in the comments. And if you want to discuss lore with me, make a post on Rusty Lake subreddit or write on the official Rusty Lake Discord. And remember, question everything in Rusty Lake.